John Jacob Jingleheimer Schmidt. That's not my name, too, but one of those names happens to be my name, actually. There seems to be a family tradition where we do include one of those names, though. It's not Jacob, and believe it or not, it's not Jingleheimer Schmidt, but it is John. It has significance to our family because, well, this is something I'll get into more into my speech, but throughout the speech, I'm going to be showing you why it is that way. So, starting off with my first name, Alexander is my name now, but what could have had been? Well, before I was born, my mom was heavily considering the name Christopher. I'm not exactly sure what happened in the process of that, but she decided to go with Alex. At first, I wasn't exactly the most happy camper about being changed the name Christopher to Alexander because at the time, well, I say at the time, but I was actually probably 5 or 6 years old when she told me this. But at the time, I wasn't very happy because I thought the name Chris was actually pretty cool. But as time went on, I kind of morphed the way I was as a person to be thinking from Christopher's a cool name to growing into my own shoes and being known as Alexander, or Alex for short. So as time went on, I became more and more Alex and less of a Christopher, and now to this day, I am more than grateful to be named Alex and not Christopher. God, thank God I am not Christopher. So speaking of what I could have been, back to the John Jacob Jingleheimer Schmidt tune, I could have been John Scott Odom III. I know it's a lengthy name, but my grandfather and my father both have the name John Scott Odom, being junior and senior, my dad being junior, obviously. So going into their child, we wanted to have a John Scott Odom III, and originally, Jacob, my older brother, was the best candidate to be named John Scott Odom III. Now, while this isn't exactly relevant, he actually does not have John or Scott in his name. He does have Odom, but family and all. But he doesn't have any remnants of my dad or my grandfather in his name. Originally, his name was going to be John Jacob, but the tune I sang earlier didn't exactly help that out. So we decided to shoot for me instead, to where I would be the next John in the family. They didn't exactly want us John Scott Odom III, though. They wanted to keep the tradition going, but a bit of a smoother rendition than what actually came to be. So, with that being said, speaking of the Odom family, just give me 1 second here. There just seems to be an easy acronym that comes with the name, actually, of John, and that's AJO. And I'll speak more on my acronym here in a bit. But when it comes to the Odom family, there happens to be another family with the name Odom. You might have heard of him, small little name. His name is Lamar Odom, basketball player for the NBA team, the Los Angeles Lakers. Dated Kim Kardashian, did a few things, little small things. But Lamar Odom was always a name that I would hear growing up because my name is Odom. So obviously when I was younger and when he was in the NBA, I would get asked a lot, did you know that you have the same name as Lamar Odom? Which I didn't know. I don't watch basketball. I do now, but at the time I didn't. I really didn't focus on basketball that much. However, a lot of the times people would joke around and sort of say, are you and Lamar Odom related? And that grew from, no, of course not, to, of course we're related. He's my cousin. Don't you see the complexion? Don't you see the relation? It's a stunning mirror to mirror. Doesn't always work the best, but I think it's funny. And actually, speaking of famous Odoms, there happens to be another famous star with the last name Odom. His name is Leslie Odom Jr., and he's a singer. I don't know too much about the guy, but I do know that he's pretty famous and has a pretty good resume on his name, so that's interesting. So for the conclusion, Odom isn't exactly the most common name, but it's a special name. And Lord knows that there's enough Alexanders and Johns in this world. But if you're talking about the Odom family in my blood, a John, a Scott, an Alex, or whoever, it doesn't matter what your name is, but a John and an Odom, 2 and 2 go hand in hand. It can mean a whole bloodline. So over the years, I've really come to develop into the person I am, and to a person whose acronym spells AJO, or AJO, which happens to be Spanish for garlic.